Well, I wanted to say how delighted I am to be able to give this quick keynote address at your conference. I'm presently at the Blackboard 2009 conference in Washington, D.C. You can see how beautiful the working conditions are and how hard we all work when we attend conferences. And I wanted to begin by talking briefly with Robin Dixon, who is the resident expert on teaching K-12 kids online. Robin, would you like to say a few things to the class?
Hello everyone. Either you've had me in CEP 820 teaching K-12 students online or not yet. If you haven't, then I introduce myself. Hello. I'm looking forward to having you in my class if I haven't already. Currently we have almost 1,000 middle school students engaged in summer camps in math and science at the Michigan Virtual School. This is just one indication of the growth of K-12 online learning, and if you consider the fact that our enrollments have risen from 9,000 to 12,000 to 15,000, we'll top over 15,000 this year, and this growth has transpired in a very short time, under 2 years. So that's all I can say for now, and I will turn you back to your keynote addresser.
I wanted to have Robin speak for one of the points on today's quick keynote, and that is that if I have one thing to say to you as teachers, the future of learning is online, and it's growing extraordinarily fast in K-12, and most people in the K-12 sector have no idea how important it will be in the future. I'm going to provide a link to a page that will provide sort of details for what I will quickly move through. But the points I wanted to cover was, one, online is important for you. The second point is that out of school time is tremendously important for you as a teacher to try to increase the learning of your students. So if you haven't thought about how to connect using things like Blackboard, where you can actually see whether your students are logged on nights and weekends and so forth, then you ought to be thinking about that, because out of school time is largely untapped for improving student learning. The third thing that I would want to emphasize is, and this is sort of funny, I wish I could be at your conference, but I have quite a little spiel on what you can learn from a conference you do not attend. It's very expensive, and you can see how we suffer attending a real conference. Most conferences today, you can learn vast amounts by buying yourself a good
Continue.
By going onto the website for something like NACOL or ISTE or any of the tech conferences, and just read what the notes of the keynote speakers are, read the PowerPoints and all that, you can get a huge amount out of conferences you do not attend. The next thing I would like to really talk about in the brief time I have is I feel passionately about the power of portfolios. You all have had the privilege of learning from the work of dozens and dozens of other teachers, precisely because they created portfolios, but they didn't create them in the way most schools think about it. They didn't hide them in a folder, they didn't put them in a notebook, they didn't meet some rubric that constrained their expressiveness. And feeling strongly about portfolios, I always feel terrible when I see in most implementations they're just not worth the effort. The huge amount of work, huge amount of worrying about grading them, very little focus on authentic work. I particularly call to your attention the portfolio, I'll send the link to you, of Emily Stone, who was a student in an undergraduate course I taught 3-4 years ago, who is now completing the master's in education in our program, who is teaching completely online an elementary school classroom. And she came to me and said, I never believed what you said was true, and here I am teaching a completely online course of elementary school students. Lastly, I'll send you a link to a rumination I've spent a lot of time on lately in my other classes, which is we as teachers have got to get very serious about the feedback we give and how we use our time. It used to be that I'd give enormously detailed feedback on portfolios as the class was wrapping up. But the teachers, of course, they're done, they're out the door. So I now never give feedback unless there's an expectation and time that revisions will actually be made. And I get the sense that many of us as teachers spend a lot of time grading and giving feedback, but not in a way that makes any difference. Delighted to have this chance to speak with you. Wish I were there. Wish you were here. And look for a page which will have links to a number of these things that we've gained from the Blackboard conference and from what I've just said. So, greetings from the U.S.